Hello everybody, Raven Knight here, and welcome to another episode of For Honor Executions Graded, the series where I take a look at each individual For Honor hero, go over their unique executions, and give them all a grade, and by the end we understand just how well those executions stood up. We've gone through the Vanguards, guys, and we're working our way through the Assassins. Today we are going to take a look at the Gladiator. I am super excited to get started. But first, for those of you who are new to the series and want to know more about how I grade and what rubric I use, take a look in the upper right hand corner of the screen right now and you will see a link to a video called That's an Execution, where you can learn all about what I do and how I go about this series, or you can look in the description box below and it'll be there as well. And if you want to know more about the series itself and want to see the rest of the episodes, wait until the very end of the video. You will get a link to a playlist where you can see all of the Executions Graded videos that I have done so far. Really hope you'll take the time to take a look at that. Now today we're taking a look at the Gladiator, like I said before, and we're going to be looking for 4 things to grade. We're going to be looking at lethality, how deadly are the executions. We're going to look at realism, how realistic is this? Is this something that could actually be done? We're going to look at efficiency, is this something that is efficient for the battlefield? Would this be a good idea to use? And we're going to look at cool factor, just how cool or flashy or awesome are the executions. Now I want to make something very clear before we get started. People have been telling me for a while that I need to change the way I grade for characters like Gladiator, because Gladiator should be treated, according to them, as a duelist warrior, someone who only fights one-on-one on the battlefield. Therefore, I should not include battlefield efficiency, or at the very least change that. I gave it careful thought and I've decided that I'm not going to change a dang thing, because Gladiator and all of the executions they are in that Gladiator can use are very much usable in Dominion or Breach or Elimination matches where there are more than one person fighting one person. There are multiple combatants. Because of that, I need to treat this like it is a battlefield scenario. Since Gladiator is not restricted to only duel matches, we need to assume that Gladiator will fight in open war, as was said in Gladiator's trailer.
The arena is not a battlefield. The thrill of the fight has waned. But how will they fare in all-out war?
So therefore, all these executions will still be graded in the same way. So, without further ado, now that we know what we're looking for and how we're going to do it, let's get started and take a look at Gladiator's executions. You ready? Let's do this. First up is Stop Squirming. Awesome, awesome. All right, so for lethality, I'm going to go ahead and give that a 4. The trident is being pushed right into the center chest. That's going to puncture the heart. That's going to go clean through the heart, probably the lungs. This is a definite kill, no doubt about it, so that's a 4 for lethality. For realism, this is also a 4. I really like how much pressure that the Gladiator has to push down to bring it down through the chest. I also like that everything about this just feels like it could really happen, like this is something that could actually happen in a coliseum or in a fight. I really like that. Efficiency, though, it is a 2. Now, at first I was going to give it a 1 because this really does take a while, but at the same time, I can't entirely blame Gladiator for that, because the reason it's taking so long is the Warden is holding back the Gladiator, like fighting back. So it's not Gladiator's fault, that's just what's going on here. However, with that said, Gladiator does shove them to the ground to do this, which wasn't necessary. They could have just stabbed while they were standing up. So I'll give it a 2 instead of a 1, but that is still a low efficiency score. And then for cool factor, I gave it a 3 because I personally really like this execution. It's very dominating. It feels like something I'd expect to see a Gladiator do in an actual combat role. And I don't know, there's something kind of terrifying about being the person on the receiving end of this, just watching this person slowly get ready to take you out and you know there's nothing you can do about it. So I really like this one. It feels like it fits Gladiator to a certain extent. Not entirely, which is why it's a 3, but still pretty good, which gives this execution, Stop Squirming, a 13 out of 16, which is an 81%. Next up is Skilled Performer. All right, now this one was a little tough to call. For lethality, I gave it a 4. Now let me explain why. I have talked about in the past that strikes to the lower body aren't necessarily going to kill right away. And there's some truth to that. But I was talking about it with Lark, and he made an interesting point. In most cases, when we see that, it's a sword slashing across the midsection, or it's an axe just chopping into the midsection, not necessarily going very, very deep, but still getting a lot of blood. But here we have a piercing weapon. The trident is puncturing, forcing itself straight through, and considering the depth, might be going out the back too. Plus, there are 3 striking points with the trident and very close together, which means you're getting heavy lacerations 3 times in very close proximity. You're not going to be able to patch this up very well. The sepsis is going to be incredibly difficult to patch up. Like, say that you had one sword and it was cutting across the stomach or stabbing into the stomach, you might be able to save that. But here, this is going to be incredibly difficult to save or patch up, and even if you do, the sepsis is going to kill. This may not be an instant kill. It might take a few minutes, but this will more than likely kill. So I'm going to give this a 4 for lethality. For realism, I gave it a 4 too. All of this feels realistic. You could do all of this. The strike to the face, the flipping onto his back, and then striking into the center section, especially since the belly's very soft. There's not a lot of protection there. A one-handed strike like that, I could definitely believe happening, so I think that works. For efficiency, I give it a 4 as well. This is fast. This is very well done. Gladiator doesn't waste a lot of time. I know that he kind of does that twirling thing with the trident, but it looks more like what he's doing is he's setting it up for the downward strike, so I don't take away too much for that. It was still just a flash to make it work while not sacrificing too much time. And then for cool factor, shoot, I like this one. This is very, very good. It's quick. It's just flashy enough. It shows off prestige and a little bit of efficiency there that I think I wasn't expecting from Gladiator. It looks dominating. It fits Gladiator's personality. So yeah, guys, 16 out of 16, which is a 100%. Yeah, Gladiator did get a 100 here. I really like this one. Next up, this one's Feisty. Ooh, that's mean. All right, so for lethality, that's a 4. All of this right here is set up, but once they do the strike into the back of the head, if that thing punctures through the back of your head or into the neck like that, you're dead. It's cutting off all circulation. It's cutting off all blood movement between the head and the body, probably puncturing the vertebra, breaking the neck. All of that combined, this person's dead. This person's done. So that's a 4 out of 4. For realism, I gave it a 4. All of this feels realistic. Like, I feel like all of this could actually happen, especially like the struggling bit. I like to see the enemy fight back. I like to see the enemy not just lay down and take it, like they're actually trying to, get away or fight back. I like that. It shows that this could be a real battlefield scenario, and so I feel like this is a realistic situation. For efficiency, it is a 2. And once again, I don't blame it entirely on Gladiator, because it's clear that Gladiator initially does try to hit Warden. Like, she is trying to end it quickly, but Warden fights back. That's not Gladiator's fault. That's the fault of Warden. You can't blame Gladiator for that. But at the same time, Gladiator did take a minute, so that strike, don't blame her for that, but then strike to the butt, and then slow pull out and then strike to the head. You could have been a bit quicker there, I feel like. Or maybe you could have used the trident to spear his butt and pull him back into you to finish him off. You didn't have to take that time to walk to him. So I did give that a 2 instead of a 1. And then for cool factor, I give it a 3. I don't know why. I think my problem with it is, while I do like it, no, don't get me wrong, I do like it, there is something about it that irks me, and I'd be lying if I said I knew exactly what it is. Maybe it's the fact that she tries to strike one-handed at that point and clearly made herself vulnerable. I don't know. There's something about it, but at the end of the day, I thought it was okay. So that gives this one a 13 out of 16, again, which is an 81%. Next up is Carpe Ventrem. All right, so for lethality on this one is also a 4 out of 4. Let's talk about why. What I like about this is, once again, we're stabbing into the center area, and you might think, okay, but is that going to kill? There's a couple things we need to keep in mind here. Again, the trident is a unique weapon for this. It's not like a spear where there's only one point of piercing. There are 3, and and all 3 points are very close together. So that means it's almost like taking a long blade and shoving it into your midsection. If this thing had more weight, or they were being thrown at it at high speed, it might actually cleave them in half. But what they didn't do is then pull it up and let gravity force them further down onto it. The amount of bleed out from that is going to be insane, especially since it's almost like an impaling, just letting gravity force them down. Imagine if the Gladiator held them there longer. That'd probably be even worse. So definitely, I think that's going to kill. It may not kill instantaneously, but it won't take long, probably a couple minutes at most. So this person is dead. They're not going anywhere, especially when you consider that this might actually paralyze them if it hits the spinal column. But that is speculatory. But do I think this will kill? Absolutely. This is deadly. For realism, though, I gave it a 3. And the reason I gave it a 3 is for one reason. Okay, I made a point in my previous Gladiator videos that I feel like the trident would snap if you tried to do that, but upon further investigation, it would not. I tested something similar to this and it did not snap. But with that said, I don't believe that you could do that one-handed, particularly if the opponent is as heavy or heavier than you. You would need both hands to lift them. Yes, I know that she's using the foot to help with leverage, but you would need 2 hands to help lift them. So that's a little unrealistic. So I will give that a 3 for realism. For efficiency, this is a 1, okay? I'm just going to be honest, this is a 1 for efficiency. If this is on the battlefield, this is a time waster. You're standing there kind of gloating and showing off. You're even shouting like, haha, look at me. You're drawing attention to yourself. You don't want that. You want to kill them and move on for a battlefield scenario. Yes, I know, she's a duelist. I don't care. We're talking about battlefield scenarios here, and this is not a good execution to do on the battlefield. So that's a 1 for efficiency. For cool factor, though, I'll give it a 3. It fits Gladiator. It fits Gladiator's personality. I just don't like it because at the end of the day, all it is you're impaling them by having them run into it and then just kind of gloating about it. I don't know. Why are you gloating about that? You're gloating that you could lift them up. You're gloating that they impaled themselves. I don't know. I'm not sure I fully get into that. But either way, I gave it a 3 for cool because I do like this one, which gives this execution an 11 out of 16, which is a 69%. Nice. Next up is Knock It Off. I have some problems with this one. Okay, so first of all, for lethality, I'm going to give this one a 1. I do not believe that this would kill at all. Let me be clear, guys. When I was doing martial arts, like mixed martial arts and Muay Thai, I've been hit in the face many times, repeatedly. I have been hit in the face with actual objects. The end of a shovel, a baseball bat at one point, and even a crowbar, although that one admittedly was accidental. And all those times that I've been hit in the face, I've never died. I didn't even get a skull fracture. Well, one time I came close, but that's another story. Point being, I'm still alive to talk about it, and this guy's only hit 3 times in the face by the wrong end of a trident, and you expect me to believe he's dead? No, I'm sorry. The worst that's going to come out of this is he might lose a foot. I do not see this as deadly. Especially when you consider that, look at where her fist is when she's initially hitting him. She's punching him in the chest. She's hoping the tip of her trident is what's hitting him in the face. Look very carefully when she hits him. Watch her where her fist is. Her fist is hitting his chest. That's even less likely to kill him. Oh boy, this is bad. Yeah, that's a 1 for lethality. For realism, though, it is a 4. I mean, you could do this. You could technically do all this stuff. It won't kill anyone, but sure, you could do this. For efficiency, I gave it a 2. It takes too long. It doesn't really add anything. And you even let go of your trident just to do that weird little twang thing. So I don't see how this is very efficient. The only reason I don't give it a 1 is because, I mean, technically you are keeping a shield on you, which is going to protect you, and also you do retrieve your shit. So I don't know, like, I feel tempted to just give this one a 1. I guess the only reason I don't is because when you're smacking like that, you were in close proximity, which is going to make it harder for the enemy to come at you, but still, I think this is bad. And then for cool factor, again, 1. It's a 1. I don't like it. I think it's terrible. I think this is such a very poor execution. It doesn't kill. It looks goofy. And even though it does kind of fit Gladiator's personality, I feel like Gladiator would actually want to do something kind of neat rather than just smack you. So yeah, this one's bad. This is an 8 out of 16, which is a 50%. Oh boy, I don't like this one. Next up is Fun and Roses. Alright, don't know where those roses came from, but for lethality, I can definitely give this a 4. The placement of the trident is right in the back, going through the heart most likely. This is definitely going to kill. I would definitely give this a 4 out of 4 for lethality. For realism, again, a 4 out of 4. I think that, throwing the trident just makes sense. It's something you could easily do. I wouldn't recommend it necessarily in a war setting, but you could realistically do it. And the throwing of the bolas was a good idea. The unrealistic aspect is the throwing of the roses, but I don't blame that on Gladiator necessarily. I blame that on very weird ideas around what For Honor is trying to do with its effects, but whatever. Realism is a 4 out of 4. For efficiency, I gave it a 2, for 2 reasons. Number 1, because even though I like the bolas aspect, that is a good one, I don't like this kind of dancing maneuver that the Gladiator does to go over there. She shouldn't be wasting time showing off. She should be moving in and just taking out the trident to move on. And second, okay, technically, she hasn't fully disarmed herself because she still has the buckler for defense, but the buckler is hardly a defensive tool. I would not use it as a major defensive tool. I would not have thrown the trident like that necessarily. I still don't think that's a very good idea for battlefield efficiency, particularly when you may not have allies around to help you out. So I'm going to take off a few points for that. And then for cool factor, I just gave it a 2. It's not that great, if I'm being honest. It's funny, and it's a cool way to use the bolas, but at the same time, it just doesn't do it for me. It's just a thrown trident. And I think the only cool part about this is the bolas to help set up for the throw, but that's it. Which gives this execution a 12 out of 16, which is a 75%. Next up is Carpe Adsum. Okay, for Carpe Adsum, lethality, I'm going to give it a 2. Again, I'm used to getting hit in the face. I know what that's like. Now, again, granted, we could argue that, hey, she's using a buckler for this. And some might say, okay, because it's a buckler, you're going to hit with a lot more force. And that's the reason I make it a 2 instead of a 1. I suppose with a buckler, it might have a better chance of killing. But really, the only way this is going to kill effectively, even with a punch, is if you're hitting the chin so hard that you break the neck, or you hit the nose in just the right way to knock the cartilage back into the brain cavity, which are ways that you could kill with this kind of uppercut. But I've been uppercut before, and it hurts. It's not pleasant, but it's not necessarily going to kill. So I gave this a 2 for lethality. For realism, it's a 4. You could definitely do this. You could definitely, a lot of realistic executions here, a lot of realistic executions from Gladiator. But you could do all this. This is totally realistic. You could do it. For efficiency, I gave it a 3. I don't like that you're leaving the trident planted in there to go into this punching combo, and I don't like that you paused to do that little boop. But although with that said, for cool factor, I gave it a 3 because I do like this execution. It reminds me of this joke meme kind of video that Marco Iolo made, where he combines Gladiator's execution with a scene from the Emperor, if the Emperor had a text-to-speech device, which I like to call the boop the snoot. So this execution, I effectively call the boop the snoot execution.
Step away from the thought.
Harry!
I would like to boop this creature.
Don't do.
It would be but a single boop on its noggin.
Do not boop that merry suicide bomber.
I want to boop the snoot.
Stop wanting.
But
Stop!
must.
Vulcan!
But boop.
No booping!
Boop.
No!
So just like, I wish to boop this creature. So then, boop, and just follow with all those punches. So I gotta say I have a soft spot for it. So for that reason, and that reason alone, I give it a 12 out of 16, which is a 75%. Next up is Ruthless Tidings. Another foot stab. All right. Okay. So for lethality, I'm going to give this one a 2. I almost gave it a 1, guys. I'll be real honest, because this punching thing, again, as someone who's been beaten in the face before, I know. But because she's using a buckler, that might give it enough oomph to actually kill. I still have some questions about that, particularly when you have a trident that can do the job better than your own fist or a buckler could. But because the buckler could add weight to the punch, I will grants it that much. So it is a 2 for lethality. For realism, I give it a 4. Because, again, all of this is possible. You could do all this. So, yep, that's easy enough. For efficiency, it's a 2. It does take a little bit of time to get this done. And for the first portion, I can't blame Gladiator because, again, the Warden's trying to avoid the attacks. But then the punching aspect. Okay, so here's the thing. Like I said, efficient. I like the fact that Gladiator spears the opponent's foot to hold them in place. That is efficient. But at the same time, the trident is also your primary weapon. You should be using it to kill, not to trap. You shouldn't just rely on your fist. I think you should have that. I think you should use that trident to do the killing, you know? But again, that's just me. And then for cool factor, I give it a 1. Because at the end of the day, this is just another spear you down and then punch you in the face execution, which we're kind of seeing a lot of, and I'd like to see Gladiator give us a little bit more variety than just spear your foot and punch you repeatedly in the face executions. I feel like that gets a little old after a while, and we do need to see more than just that. So, that gives this execution a 9 out of 16, which is a 56%. Next up is Brain Dead. Oh, come on! Alright, well, we have our first Head Destroyer execution, which gives us a 4 out of 4 for lethality. Hey, if your head's gone, you're dead. But for realism, we've got a 1. Let's leave aside the flip for a second. Let's ignore that flip, which I think is a little questionable. Let's just look at that head-destroying stomp. There isn't even a skull left. No, that does not happen. That does not happen. You cannot destroy the head with a stomp. Oh, man, this is awful. I can't believe you did that. That is so unrealistic. Okay, so that's a 1 for realism. For efficiency, I will say it's a 4. That was quick. You took care of the problem. You didn't waste time. I'll give you that much. So 4 for efficiency. And then for cool factor, I'll give it a 2. I'll give it a 2. It annoys me that you did that, Gladiator. It really annoys me that you did that. You've had really great realism executions. You haven't had any head-destroying executions. You haven't done any decapitations. I really like the creativity you were showing. Maybe a little repetitive with the spearing of the foot thing, but overall, I really like what you were doing. Here, no, it was like Ubisoft said, we need one execution that makes no frickin' sense, and they threw that one in. The only reason it gets a 2 and not a 1 is because I kind of like the flip. I kind of like the way she spears the arm and flips them like that. That is kind of neat. That's a creative way to do it. I don't think you could flip them that easily, maybe throw them to the ground, but still, I'll give credit. That part was kind of neat. So I'll give you that. So that gives this execution an 11 out of 16, which is a 69%. You don't deserve it, but technically you did kill and it was fast. So a 69% will suit you. Next up is How Dare You? A personal favorite of mine. Alright, so even though it is a personal favorite, that's a 1 for lethality. You can't even argue that she punched with the buckler. No, she punched with her fist. And again, I've lived through many a head punches. I don't see this as killing. It could, technically, it could if you snap the neck with that punch. Or caved in the skull with that punch. I suppose you could. But I just don't see that being a guaranteed kill. So that's a 1 for lethality. For realism, it's a 4. You could do this. Hey, yeah, you could do it. You could punch a guy in the face. That's probably the most realistic execution I've ever seen. Punching a dude square in the face, I could totally see that. Then you have efficiency. Efficiency is 2. For one thing, you took that punch, stood there a minute, put down your weapon, and then punched him in the face. You didn't even use your buckler to punch him. You literally took that hit, set down your weapon, and then punched him. And as much as I love the attitude, and that's not very efficient, so I gotta make you lose points for that. But for cool factor, this is a 4. This is one of my favorite Gladiator executions. It's just funny, and that's one of the reasons I like using Maria, because it's like this girl who just got hit in the face, like, this mother... Boom! It's one of those things like, oh no, you didn't. Like, I love to throw in like little sound effects like, you son of a bitch! It's one of the funniest executions.
Now for a lesson. You may have heard these words before, but I'll teach you what they really mean. Go beyond! Plus!
So I gave that a 4 for cool factor. That's an 11 out of 16, which is a 69%. I wish this one could go higher because but the lethality score is very, very low. So, I still love it. Next up is Fighting Dirty. Okay, so for lethality, I'm going to give this a 3. I do actually think this would most likely kill. First, we're spearing into the foot. First we're striking the throat, which would probably break the esophagus. It would probably cause swelling of the throat, which would probably kill you by asphyxiation. Probably. Was it the throat or was it the chest? I want to say it was the throat. But oh no, I do think this would probably kill, but it's a little hard to say because again, we're not using the trident to kill. Again, this is getting a bit repetitive, guys. A lot of these executions involve stabbing the foot to hold them in place, which is fine, and then just punching them. I feel like you could do a lot more than this, but regardless of that, I do think it will likely kill, just can't be sure. So that's a 3 for lethality. For realism, it's a 4. You could do this. This is all very realistic. You could do all of that. For efficiency, it's a 4. This is fast. This is quick. You take care of the problem very quickly and take out your trident and move on. I really like that. That was very well done. And for a cool factor, I give it a 4. Well, I'm not entirely sure that it would kill. I do believe it would most likely kill. And I kind of like the creative way that the buckler is used. Instead of just punching in the face, it also used the edge of the buckler to strike the throat and then follow up with an uppercut to the chin. I thought that was pretty good. I thought that fit for Gladiator's personality, fit in the way Gladiator would fight. And even though I'm getting a little sick of the trident into the toe thing, I can at least forgive it in this case because we're at least using the buckler in a new and creative way, and we're not wasting time with punch, punch, punch. It was one punch, but a jab to the throat, which is at least somewhat shaking it up. So that gives this one a 15 out of 16, which is a 94%. Next up, we have Maximum Carnage. Okay, so for lethality, I gave it a 4 out of 4. This is definitely deadly. This is going to kill. The trident is planted right into the center of the chest. It's going to be getting the heart. It's going to be hitting the lungs. This man is dead, even without the throw. For realism, yeah, 4 out of 4. I gave it a 4 out of 4 for realism. You could throw someone like this, get the leverage right, plant your feet, get them off their center of balance, and use that trident to just fling them. You could do this. I could see this happening. For efficiency, though, I did give it a 3. You don't need to do the throw. It is unnecessary. Not that it's necessarily bad, but it is unnecessary to do, and it's just keeping you away from the rest of the fight, so I gave it a 3 for that. And then for cool factor, I give it a 1. I don't like this one. I don't like this execution. I know it's one of the default executions for Gladiator, but it was one of the first ones that I looked at, and I said, yeah, I can't wait to get a different one, because this one just did not do it for me. I was not a fan of this Gladiator execution, didn't work for me. If you like it, great. I just didn't like it. So that gives this one a 12 out of 16, which is a 75%. Next up is Wriggling Victim. I've never understood this one. All right, so for lethality, this is a 4. It looks like the warden is punched in the face, and then they go into an epileptic fit, like they just start having a seizure on the ground, which probably means they're going to die anyway, but then the Gladiator finishes them off. So yeah, if they're having a seizure right there and no one's around to help them, they're probably dead anyway. So that's a 4 right there before we even get to the trident part. But if the trident does go into the body, it would hit the lower intestines. It looks like it might even puncture the lungs, maybe even the liver. So yeah, that would be deadly. Even like with the seizure, that alone would be deadly. For realism, I'm going to give it a 2, and I'll tell you why. I don't know why the punch caused a seizure. That's the first part. And the second part is where the trident goes in. Where it's entering, it's going to have to go through the hip bone. That's going way too deep. How did it go that easily through the hip bone one-handed? That's not an easy bone to go through. So I'm afraid that's a little unrealistic. For efficiency, that's a 2 as well. I don't know why she stopped to watch him have a seizure. In fact, I'll tell you another thing I don't like about it. I don't like the way she punched him. Notice how in all the other punches so far with the buckler, there was a lot of weight behind those punches. They tried to hit hard. That one felt kind of like a slap, didn't it? Felt kind of like a, almost like a feminine whoosh. I didn't like that. I wish it was a stronger punch. Look at this. That doesn't look strong at all. That doesn't look tough. That doesn't look impressive. It's just kind of a bop. So yeah, I didn't like that. It felt like it shouldn't have caused what it did. It felt like it wasn't really trying, and then just this, and then move on. I didn't get that. And then for cool factor, it's just a 2. Again, I don't really get this. I don't get how the seizure started. I don't get why they're having a seizure, and then I don't get why Gladiator just kind of watched them for a second. I feel like if they're still wriggling on the ground, that would be a sign to me, hey, enemy not dead yet, finish them. I don't know why she's looking like, oh, what's going on? Okay, I'll stab. I would have just hit them and then stab. Like, don't even wait to see what they do. Just stab. I didn't get that. So, regardless of that, that gives this one a 10 out of 16, which is a 63%. Next is Sleep Now. Alright, so for lethality, I'm going to give that a 3 out of 4, and I'll tell you why. I do think this will most likely kill. Not in the way they show, though. It shows in the execution that they somehow broke the neck, but the way the trident is angled, I don't necessarily see that happening. But that amount of pressure on the esophagus, that's going to maybe not break the neck, but that's going to crush the esophagus. It's going to swell, which is going to cut off air passage from the head to the body. This person's going to die from, this guy's going to die because he cannot breathe. It's going to be pretty quick. But still, it's not an immediate death. The body has creative ways to get air when it can't do it the natural way. So it'll probably take a couple minutes to die, but still, pretty neat. It's not, I don't necessarily know if this would break the neck. It could, I guess, but I think it would actually kill due to asphyxiation more than anything, so that's why I gave it a 3. For realism, I actually gave this a 3, and I'll tell you why. While I do think that the majority of this you could do, I don't think you could break the neck that easily. The shaft doesn't look like it's going the right way for it to do that, and there's not enough of a twist on the shaft to justify the head snapping. It's kind of like that Orochi execution we looked at, where they broke the neck. It doesn't look like enough is done on the weapon's end to cause that neck break. So I'm not sure I fully buy that. For efficiency, I gave it a 2. This is taking too long. The only reason I didn't give it a 1 is because you could technically use the warden's body as a protecting agent to keep enemies off of you. But this does take too long. It exposes you. You've locked up your buckler and your trident. So if someone comes at you from behind or from the side, you're kind of screwed. And then for cool factor, I gave it a 2. I don't like it that much. Lark and I talked about it. Lark said that he actually liked the fact that it was a unique way to use the trident. I didn't like it because I thought the trident should be used in its traditional way. Spear the chest, spear the side, spear the head. But we met in the middle and we said 2, because while it is a unique way to use the trident that we haven't seen before, I still say there are better ways to use a bladed spearing weapon. So that gives this one a 10 out of 16, which is a 63%. And lastly, we have Reel It In. For lethality, I gave Reel It In a 4 because of this initial spear to the chest. Like, you've got that thing sunk in deep enough to puncture the heart. They're dead. This person is dead. Everything else after this is just dressing. So they're done as soon as you get the trident in that deep. So I think that they're dead at that point. For realism, I gave it a 3, mostly because why is the trident stuck in them? Okay, well, it could be stuck in them. It could be stuck in them. I mean, I guess it could be caught on a bone or caught on the flesh or something like that. So I guess you could argue that that's why it's stuck. Then why did it come out so easily when she needed it to? Lark made a good point when he saw it. He said maybe what should happen is the trident stays stuck in until she hits him, and then hitting him is what knocks it out. That would have been a better idea. Or maybe what could happen is she accidentally lets go of the trident while it's still stuck in him, and he falls forward. She gets angry that he took her weapon, and then punches him so hard in the face he flies off of it. That might have been funny. But no, for what it is, I don't know why it came out that easily. For efficiency, I gave it a 3. You didn't need to do the Reel It In part. You've already speared them in the chest. they're done. Just yank it out or run to them and punch them off. You don't need to do the whole reel in thing. And then for cool factor, it's a 3. This is kind of funny. I'm not going to lie. It's a really cool clothesline move, kind of like just a bash them in the face because they're stuck on your weapon kind of thing. I admit, that's kind of cool. So that gives this one a 13 out of 16, which is an 81%. All right, guys, that does it. We've finished looking over all of Gladiator's executions. We've broken them down as best we could. We've crunched all the numbers, and now, getting the average together, looking over all 15 and crunching the numbers, we have a total, an average of 73%. I was kind of surprised, honestly. The truth is that people were very worried that with Gladiator, it was going to be a problem of efficiency. You know, like the Gladiator is a one-on-one fighter. They're not used to big brute combat, so they're going to have efficiency ratings that are poor because they take their time with their executions. They're very showy. They're very flashy. But what I found was, yes, while efficiency did hurt in a few areas and it was kind of on the low end of average, Gladiator made up for it by being very realistic in a lot of their executions. I was very surprised. With only a few exceptions, most of Gladiator's executions were rather realistic and rather deadly. They used the trident in very creative ways, and it's surprising because when you look at Gladiator history, most gladiators didn't want to kill each other. Death was not a common thing in Gladiator matches because you wanted to stay alive. This was like pro wrestling, you know? This is kind of like early MMA, you know, you want to fight for the entertainment of people, not necessarily to kill, not that death didn't happen, but you would think, well, the trident can't be that deadly of a weapon. However, we see that in this, the Gladiator made great use of it, and I gotta admit, was very deadly with it. So, there we have it, a 73%, mostly because even though efficiency was lower tier, realism was high tier, and everything else was pretty much average. Gladiator's one of those heroes that annoys me to fight against because they just have so much working for them. But in terms of executions, I was very pleased with it. Maria really came out on top on this one. But what do you guys think? Do you think this was a fair execution grade in video? Do you like how it came out? Do you think it should have been higher or lower? Let me know down in the comment sections below. Are you excited for who's coming up next? Because, hey, there's only one more assassin to go, and we all know who it is, and we are very, very excited for that one, aren't we? Yeah, I know I am. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if you want to know more about this series, you can check out the playlist in which we go over all the execution videos so far, and you can go check out the That's an Execution video, which will let you know about how I grade these things. But otherwise, until next time, I will see you in my next video. Take care.